Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We from the group 4. On this occasion, we want to presentation the material about prediction techniques. But before that, we want to introduce our group members. The first, I'm Anissa Putritami. The second, Hamidah. And the third, Yusuf Afisena. For the presentation for today, we consist of three explanation. For the first explanation, will be explained by Hamida. Thank you, Hamida. Time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Anisha. Okay, I will explain the technique prediction. Development planning is concerned with the future whose condition cannot be known at all. However, for the purpose of preparing a good and measurable development plan, is it necessary to estimate the condition of the future so that development strategies and policies can be determined in a more precise and direct manner. Therefore, the preparation of the development projection or prediction is very important and cannot be spared in the preparation of a development plan. While the preparation of this prediction requires certain calculation techniques and methods. It's of which has its own strengths and weaknesses. The first technique is trend prediction techniques. Prediction using trend regression techniques is based on point of view that the forecasts for the future will be largely determined by the condition and fact that occurred in the past. If a past fact show that the development of an aspect of the development is quite fast, future prediction will also show developments with almost the same tendency. Trend prediction techniques can be done in two forms. The first is predict the linear trend. If the distribution of the data used turns out to be spread in the form of a straight line. The second is nonlinear trend prediction. If the opposite happens, that is, the data used turns out to be distributed in the form of a non-straight line, determination of the distribution of the data can be done by making a graph of the distribution of the data or by comparing the statistical test of the results of the two types of trend regressions. In general, predictions with this trend technique can be reached in two steps. The first step is to estimate the coefficients using a regression technique. After the assessment, is it necessary to first know whether the results of the regression estimation can be used by looking at the level of significance of the statistical test results. There are at least three types of statistical tests that are commonly used, namely t-statistic, p-statistic, and coefficient of determination. The second step is to make a prediction for the future according to the desired number of time periods in planning, whether 1 year, 5 years for RPGM predictions, or 20 years for RPGP. An example of prediction of the GRDP of West Sumatra based on constant price in, in 2000 over a 10-year period, namely for 2002 until 2011. Data is either million. where the number in brackets is the value of t statistic and R2 is the coefficient of determination. Here it can be seen that the estimation results obtained have a very high level of significance, which is close to this number. To a number. This means that the regression estimation results are quite representative and can be used in making future prediction. Since this regression is carried out using data for 10 years, then prediction can be made for 2020, 2013, 2014, 2015, and 2016. Furthermore, if the regression is carried out using the nonlinear exponential method, then the procedure for performing the projection is also very similar. For the same data, the result of the nonlinear trend regressions are obtained because the regression is carried out in a logarithmic equation. Is it necessary to draw an antelope or until to the obtained regression coefficient before making prediction? From the two methods above, is it appears that there is a difference in the value of the two prediction results. This is due to differences in the equations used as the basis for calculating the regression. To choose which result is better statistically, you can do it in the two ways. The first is before estimating. First, describe the distribution of the data. If the data is spread irregularly, then the trend is nonlinear. Whereas if the data is spread regularly, the trend is linear. For example, it can be seen that the distribution of the data tends to be regular, so it is better to use a linear trend for prediction. The second, if the distribution pattern is difficult to determine whether is it spread out of specifically pattern, is it necessary to calculate the standard deviation of the estimate values of the true trends during the observed period. Then choose the calculation result with a smaller standard deviation so that a prediction bias can also be minimized. The second technique is cause and effect prediction techniques. To overcome the weakness contained in the trend prediction techniques, another prediction techniques has emerged which is based on a cause and effect relationship intervention. In this case, video prediction are based on cause and effect relationships that occurred in the past. Thus, the factor that is used as the main basis for prediction is no longer only time, but by various variables that are closely related to the element to be predicted. For example, rice production is determined by three main factors, such as the addition of planting area, the use of fertilizers, and the amount of labor use. Where P is the production value of the industrial sector, L represents the amount of labor used, E is the value of the investment invested. Uh, Similar to 10 prediction techniques, the first step that needs to be done is to calculate the regression estimate after the regression results are obtained. Then before using them to make a prediction, is it necessary to first test the significance level of the regression result? For example, the calculation examples uses industrial data from West Sumatra for a period of 10 years with the dependent variable being the value of production and the independent variable being the amount of labor and the value of investment. From the estimation result above for the estimation result, it is appears that the investment variable has less effect of increasing the production value. This is partly due to the inefficient use of investment funds. So if is it going to be predicted, this variable so be reviewed as a data mining variable. To be able to make prediction with this cause and effect model, is it also necessary to make a projection of the value of each independent variable during the prediction period? The projection technique used can be in the form of linear or non-linear trend regression. As with trend regression prediction, the quality of a prediction result will be largely determine how far the prediction is likely to contain errors. However, the weakness of prediction using trend and causal regression techniques is when the data used turn out to be very highly fluctuating and irregular, as happened in 2000 in 1909 Indonesian economic crisis. In this case, it is very likely that the prediction result will be far from the real conditions that occur later because prediction using the trend methods are based on the slope of the regression line, which might lead to overestimation. Therefore, this prediction should be used if the fluctuation in the data to be used are not too large and are stable. In addition, for this causal method, is it necessary to pay attention to the emergence of serial correlation, multicollinearity, and heteroscedasticity problems? To get good estimation and prediction results, these three problems should not arise. This is known as blue-based linear unbiased estimation. However, the multicollinearity problem is very difficult to avoid because the economic variables are actually impossible to be completely independent. So the presence of the multicollinearity problem is still acceptable if the correlation level is not too large. Okay, that's all from me.
Thank you, Hamida. Okay, the next technique will be explained by Yusuf Avicenna. Yusuf Avicenna, time is yours.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Nisa. Here I want to expand my presentation is about moving average prediction technique. Yeah. If the trend prediction technique and cause and effect model cannot provide conviction result, other technique can also be used, namely the moving average method. This technique is commonly used when the duration of data over time is high enough so that the use of the trend method is reliable, use logical result, and tends to unstable. But an alternative prediction technique is needed that is more in line with the existing data condition, namely the moving average prediction technique. This prediction is based on the average value of several years ago. Then move forward to make prediction for the next time period. The average value can be carried out for a period of 3 or 5 years depending on the level of slippage that is expected to occur. Prediction result using this technique will tend to be lower and more stable than trend prediction technique based on past growth rates. Yeah, however, the weakness of this technique is that this method provides the same average rate in calculating the average value for each observation. Meanwhile, the reality shows that the data for the last few years will be determine the predictive value in the future. To overcome this weakness, a better technique emerged with a scalar exponential smoothing. The next technique is the prediction technique. The facts show that in making prediction using the trend method time series in the long term, the data often use contain quite large sectional variation and cyclical fluctuation. In addition, seasonal variation and cyclical fluctuation occur. Production test two elements of variation and fluctuation need to be considered explicitly in the model to be used. Prediction model that can explicitly include aspect of seasonal variation and cyclical fluctuation is a composition method as described in McLeod's and Weckler 1978 and Gaynor and Gibbs 1974. As you can see, that's all my explanation about moving average prediction technique and the completion prediction technique. You can also to explain it and understand it. Uh, Maybe that's all for me. Back to moderator.
Thank you, Ucup. Okay, for the next technique will be explained by myself. The next technique is Arma prediction techniques. The Arma model is a combination of the autoregressive or IR model and the moving average model. The Arma method is also often referred to as the Bok-Jenkins method because it was developed by George Bok and William Jenkins in 1976. It is undeniable that the trend prediction technique that used the time series system turned out to have a very serious weakness. Namely, it tends to be overtimed because it is based on a growth rate which is usually with high and fluctuating. To overcome this weakness, a combination of these two methods was carried out and in a combined method called the method ARMA prediction. The term ARMA stands for two statistical methods, namely autoregressive moving average. The autoregressive method is basically the same as the trend method or time series based on the growth rate or slope of the regression line. However, there is a slight difference, namely that the autoregressive model does not formulate an equation with a function of time, but in the form of an equation using the time lag for each data. As previously said, the ARMA model requires series stationarity. Stationarity, this can be tested using the ADF test calculation. In practice, ARMA calculations are often treated as ARIMA or autoregressive integrated moving average models with no process record, differencing because the data is stationary. In other words, the ARMA model can be written as the more general ARIMA PDQ model where P is the word of the autoregressive process, Q is order in the moving average process, and D is the differentiation process, which in the case of Arma is 0. So the Arma model is often written as the Arima model P0 key. In this case, the value of P and Q can be estimated by plotting the value of ACF or autocorrelation factors and PACF or partial autocorrelation factors. The last technique for prediction in regional development is Hart-Domars economic growth prediction techniques. The Hart-Domar economic growth prediction techniques, as the name suggests, this prediction technique is based on the Hart-Domar model, which is commonly found in textbook on economic theory macro. In this case, the main determinant of economic growth are investment and obviously the technology used in the carrying out production activities. The type of technology used is reflected in the ICOR or incremental capital output ratio. Coefficient used in the region of country concern. The main determinant of economic growth are investment and technology used in carrying out production activities. The type of technology used is reflected in the ICOR or incremental capital output ratio. Coefficient value used in the region or country concerned, following the formula as summarized by Todaro 2000, the Hart-Domar model can be concluded as the stable growth. The warranted rate of growth can be determined by the following formula. The formula is AY divided Y equal S divided K, where Y is GDP at the national level or GRDP at the regional level. AS divided AY is the marginal propensity to save or MPS, and K equal AK divided AY is incremental capital output ratio. The above equation state that a stable growth rate is determined by the ratio between the will to save or MPS and the need for capital to produce 1 unit of the output. In addition, the formula can be used a formula to predict the planned economic growth. Example, the data show that the average MPS rate is 1.20 per year, while the ICOR is 3. So by plugging into the equation, the best prediction of economic growth are AY divided Y equal S divided K equal 0.20 divided 3 equal 6%. The calculation of this stable growth rate implies that the realized growth rate is below this level due to limited investment fund. It is likely that the unemployment rate will increase. This is because the additional job opportunities driven by economic growth are not expected to keep pace with the growth in the number of job seekers. On the other hand, if the realized growth rate is greater, the government must be prepared to face the possibility of an increase in the inflation rate. This happens because the increase in the money supply driven by increased investment could not keep pace with the relative or low production growth. The technique of predicting economic growth and investment needs based on the Hart-Domar model contains weakness because investment is considered the only determinant of economic growth, whereas labor is also another variable that influences the economic growth of a country or a region. Okay, I think enough for our explanation about the technique prediction of regional development. Uh, thank you, uh, and last I say Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.